This isn't an easy day for me. It's not an easy day for me at all. First and foremost, congratulations to Liverpool Football Club. 20-time league champions confirmed officially today. It's been coming, right? Let's not act like this is all of a sudden like, oh, let's be dramatic. Everyone knows that this was a formality. In fact, I've been calling them champions elect since November, December time. And even though so many Arsenal fans were talking about, well, don't count us out and Liverpool will fall off eventually and we just got to get... I never bought it, to be honest with you. Since November, December time, I've pretty much been of the opinion that Liverpool, it was in their hands and it would require a pretty big collapse from them for this league to go anywhere else. And today, that's become official. They have been relentless. They have been emphatic. They have been dominant. They have been ruthless. They have been free-flowing, goal-scoring, tight at the back, and now they have become champions. Liverpool Football Club, 20-time champions of England. They have now today officially got back on their perch. As the saying goes, Sir Alex, when he arrived at Man United, vowed that he would knock Liverpool off their effing perch. And upon leaving Manchester United, confirmed that he had knocked Liverpool off their effing perch. Well, after today, Liverpool have remounted onto their perch. 20-time league champions, now equal with Man United at the top. And of course, you look at the European Cups as well, too. The FA, I mean, the number of titles that this club has, it speaks for itself. They are one of the biggest clubs in the world. And today is just another sign of that. Obviously, they went into this game only needing to avoid defeat to Spurs, who already, when everyone is available, are a pretty bad team. They rested basically their entire squad ahead of a Europa League semi-final in midweek against Bodo Glimt, and it just made them even weaker. Now, of course, they did grab an early goal through Solanke, but it proved to mean absolutely nothing as Liverpool just absolutely trounced Spurs 5-1. It wasn't even competitive. And to be honest with you, a lot of Liverpool's games, in my opinion, have been like that this season. Obviously, the second half, it has felt a little bit more muddy and like they're kind of getting through it a little bit more. But the first half of the season, they were skipping past teams for fun, man. You think of the 3-0 at Old Trafford. You think of home and away wins against City. You think of that game against West Ham at the Olympic Stadium. Spurs, home and away. They've made light work of nearly every single team in this league. I mean, the only one they haven't made light work, it feels like, is Nottingham Forest, who managed to get 4 points off them this season. But outside of that, I mean, these guys have been irresistible. They have been unstoppable. They've been irresistible. They've been ridiculous. I want to give a shout out to a few guys. I want to talk about their season as a whole. And I want to talk about as well, too, why this day is so difficult for me, man. But before anything, right, I think the first man who deserves so much credit today, right, is Arne Slot. Because amongst all of this talk about the league and Liverpool haven't had any competition and is it a bad league season, I think that can all be addressed, and we can speak about that in a little bit, right? But let's not forget at the start of the season where we kind of all sat with all of this, right? It feels like a lifetime ago, but Jurgen Klopp left Liverpool Football Club this summer. One of the pillars of the football club, a guy who, in my opinion, resurrected that football club, brought them back from the ashes, and I believe probably is responsible for most of this squad, right? Slot deserves the credit for winning, but the build of this squad is a Klopp squad. This is his team. I mean, he left the football club this summer. Let's not forget about that, because although it feels like a long time ago, and of course Slot deserves all the credit for winning, let's not forget that one of the greats of this football club left. And we went into the season thinking about Sir Alex when he left Man United and how difficult a job that was for David Moyes to take over and how that ultimately ended in tears. And then we thought of Arsene Wenger at Arsenal and how difficult a job it was when he left for Unai Emery and how that ended in tears. And I think he would have been forgiven for expecting that similar could happen to Liverpool. Now, of course, I do think that the building blocks and the platform that Klopp left for the next manager to inherit, it was a lot healthier than what Sir Alex was leaving and what Wenger was leaving. Absolutely. But still, no one thought Liverpool were going to win the league this season, especially in Slot's first year. We looked at City. I thought City were going to win the league this year. And of course, they have had injuries, but also a failure to really replenish that squad has killed them. You look at Arsenal coming off successive back-to-back second place seasons. Could this be the year they finally jump over the hump? I think I had them over Liverpool. I don't think anyone looked at Liverpool and said, yeah, this year they're going to go one step further than they did last season, where, to be fair, they were very competitive. They were in a title race for most of the year, but ultimately they fell flat. And then you look at the window that they had to, failing to bring in a single player, even though they tracked Zubimendi practically the entire summer. We looked at all of that. We looked at Klopp leaving. We looked at no signings. We looked at maybe Salah and Van Dijk getting another year older. And we thought to ourselves, do Liverpool really have what it takes to kind of get better than they were last season? And I don't think anyone confidently could have told you yes. And that's why I think Arne Slot deserves so much credit, because he has turned doubters into believers. And he has turned what seemed like a pipe dream into reality. Liverpool are the best team in the country. At one point, they looked like they were the best team in the world. And a huge part of that is down to him. Yes, Mohamed Salah, who we'll speak about, has been untouchable in the league. Yes, Virgil van Dijk has put together another Rolls-Royce campaign at center back. Yes, McAllister has been an absolute gem in midfield. Yes, Gravenberch has been a revelation at central defensive midfield, which no one kind of saw coming. Yes, Diaz has kind of rediscovered himself playing centrally. Yes, Gakpo has become all of a sudden maybe the best left-sided player in the league. Like, all of that is true, but a lot of that has to do with Slot. Because a lot of these players I'm talking about kind of looked like they were dead in the water under Klopp last year. We talk about Gravenberch. He was practically a non-factor for Klopp. We look at Gakpo. The guy was struggling to find a role in this team. Diaz looked dead on his feet. And all of a sudden now, Slot has turned players that seemed like they had no future at Liverpool into key cogs for a team that have steamrolled the league. I think the style of play has been far more controlled. We've spoken about that all season, and I think it reflects in the statistics as well too, in terms of possession, in terms of chances conceded, in terms of how many times Liverpool have gone behind this season, in terms of their defensive record, in terms of their consistency. I think Slot has brought an element of calmness and control to a Liverpool team that under Klopp, we all loved watching them play. We all loved watching them bombard forward. We all loved watching the fullbacks go high flying on either side. But there was a certain risk that at times hurt Liverpool in key moments. The amount of times that they fell behind last season under Klopp. And at the start, in the first 3 quarters of the season, they were consistently coming back. But it hurt them. It bit them at the end of the season. And it ultimately was the reason why they didn't win the league last year. With Slot, from match day 1 to match day whatever it is now, I can't even remember. I think there's 4 games left to play. You haven't had that. Yes, there have been games where Liverpool looked a little shaky and he was really good. That's another thing he's been really good at his in-game management, bringing on players that can change the game, whether it's a Harvey Elliott, whether it's a Darwin Nunez, whether it's even a Fede Chiesa, whether it's a Curtis Jones. It doesn't matter who he's bringing on, they're making an impact off the bench. Whether it's bringing Gravenberch on at center back and pushing another midfielder forward, like he did against Fulham on a few occasions. Slot deserves so much credit, man. He deserves so much credit. And coming into a Premier League and winning in your first season is not an easy feat. And it's reflected by the fact that so few managers have managed to do it. You have Jose, of course, his first go-around at Chelsea. You have Antonio Conte. You have Carlo Ancelotti. You have Claudio Ranieri, I guess, at Leicester. Anybody else? Nah, it doesn't. I don't think it's happened for any other manager. That's not something that does happen. Klopp couldn't do. I mean, and to be fair, right? I guess the counter argument is, well, it helps to have a team that's already kind of in a position to challenge. Of course, I get that. Like, Klopp was never going to win the league in his first year. Guardiola couldn't do it. Thomas Tuchel couldn't do it. Mancini didn't do it. Pellegrini actually is one that won it in his first year. Fair enough. But it doesn't happen often. It's kind of my point here. So I think Arne Slot, man. And you know what it is with Arne Slot as well, too? One thing I really admire about the guy. We always talk about managers and how a team is really a reflection of their manager. You think of Klopp and you think of his Liverpool team. That's, for me, the ultimate representation of it. Klopp's energy and his passion and his human nature, like the little human touch he kind of had, it reflected in the way his teams went about football games. It reflected in the way the squad was built, the individuals and personalities they had, and the way they attempted to win football games. I look at this Arne Slot team, and they are a reflection of their manager, both in his cool and composed nature, in his steadiness, and his ability to kind of not get too high, but not get too low either. This team seems like a reflection of that, and that's the ultimate compliment I can give, as well as the fact that for the next guy I want to talk about, I think he's taken his game up another level. He's helped, and that's Mohamed Salah, who will undoubtedly be the Premier League player of the season. And you know what I was thinking the other day, right? That's a formality. He's the best player in the league. He's been the best player, and he is the best player in the league. But I was thinking to myself, right? You know, in the NBA, if you guys watch NBA, Steph Curry in 15-16 won the MVP of the NBA unanimously. I think he's the only player ever to do it. And basically, every voter voted for him. There wasn't a single voter that voted for somebody else. I think he's the only one to ever do that. And I thought in Premier League history, how many players who've won player of the year could you say deserve to win it unanimously? I think Ronaldo 07-08 would have won it unanimously. I think, you see what, like, honestly, it's tough because you might be saying, oh, Suarez 13-14 deserved to win it unanimously. That's debatable because look at the season Yaya Toure had that year. 12-13, Bale won it, but I think Suarez could have won it. I think Van Persie could have won it. Drogba 09-10, you could have made the argument Rooney could have won it. To win it unanimously in terms of there isn't a single doubt that this is the single most valuable player, the single best player in the league. No one else is even a contender. I don't think you can say that about too many players. I'm sure Henry has had a year like that as well too. If anything, maybe Salah 17, 18, but even then, like De Bruyne was pretty good that year. Maybe De Bruyne, I don't know. Just food for thought, right? We're just having conversation here. But that speaks to how dominant Salah has been this year. And you know what it is, yeah? First of all, again, give credit to Slot, because I think this year he has really he's helped take Salah's game to a new level. Because we know Salah is an output machine. He's put together 20 goals in the league plus pretty much every year since he's been here. I think his lowest scoring season is 19? But I think this year, right? Slot's positioning of Salah, where he's kind of told him he wants him taking positions on the pitch, where he wants him kind of doing his most damage, requiring the fewest touches to kind of get his game off, always being within 1 to 2 touches of a shot, a cross, or a decisive pass. I think Salah deserves a lot of credit for that. He's kind of limited, in my opinion, as well, to Salah's defensive actions, how much effort Salah has to exert defensively. But then you also got to look at Salah, a guy that all season long has practically been playing for a contract. He's been playing for his Liverpool future, because for some strange reason, Liverpool thought that a guy of Salah's, build first of all, and his consistency and his durability would be a risk for a new contract. And Salah said, oh yeah, is that how you feel about me? Watch what I'm about to do. I'm about to put this club on my back. I'm about to be the single most consistent goal and assist creating machine that the league has seen for years. And we are going to win Premier League number 20. And it's going to be largely because of me. And they have had no choice but to reward him with that contract. He waited his time. He was patient. I mean, he was a little petty in the press conferences at times. He did make his voice heard, which I actually like. But he said, hey, that contract's coming by hook or by crook. I admire Salah a lot because all season he could have negotiated with any club he wanted to. He could have negotiated with PSG, could have negotiated with Saudi, Real Madrid. I'm sure Salah is a player that every club on the planet would love to have. But give him credit because he showed loyalty to Liverpool. At a time where you could argue Liverpool probably didn't show as much loyalty to him as they should have. Because this contract that he's been rewarded with in the last 2 weeks should have been given to him a long time ago. The season he's put together is one of the greats. Like, you could make the argument it is the greatest single Premier League season by an individual. You could definitely make that argument because I think it's up there. Not only in terms of the numbers that he's put up, but also the reliance that this attack has kind of had on him. Like, yes, Diaz has scored goals. Yes, Gakpo has scored goals. Yes, Jota has scored goals. Nunez has popped up with a few. But all those guys have also had patches in their season where they have been inconsistent. They've all had patches in their season when they haven't been firing, where they have been on the bench. And he has been the constant that when they were scoring, he was assisting. When they went out and someone else came in and started scoring, he was still assisting them. He is Liverpool's attack. And the worst part of Liverpool's seasons, when they lost in the Champions League and they lost in the Cup, it's not a coincidence that it became when Salah effectively just couldn't get his game off. And they couldn't rely on anyone else. Because if he's not doing it, Liverpool's attack just hasn't been there. Luckily for them, he's been doing it all season. This season has been absolutely ridiculous. And it deserves to be crowned with Premier League Player of the Season. Because quite simply, he has had no equal in the league this year. And then we move on to Van Dijk, the captain. Obviously took over the captaincy from Jordan Henderson last season. And Van Dijk, again, similar to Salah, has been playing for a contract all year. And he has again shown that he is an Iron Man. So late in his career, I think finally, by the way, I mean, I haven't been part of this boat because personally, I admire Van Dijk's greatness on a whole nother level. But there has always been this conversation around Van Dijk and his place amongst the Premier League greats at center back. His longevity is always the kind of thing that you throw at him. Well, you look at Van Dijk now, and he's been at Liverpool since 2018. So what is that? 7 years at the club now, with the year or two he had at Southampton as well too. It's nearly a decade in the league, being one of, if not the best center back in that league the entire time. How's that for longevity? This guy is an absolute great of the game. He's an absolute Goliath again. He stands so tall in the back, not just physically, but also what he represents as well too. There's always been this conversation this season, especially that Carragher has kind of been pushing about who's the best Liverpool player and who's the most important one. I think you can definitely make the argument for both these guys in terms of Salah and Van Dijk, right? But although Salah's impact is easier to quantify because of his numbers, Van Dijk's impact is almost how much confidence and aura he exudes amongst his entire team. Do you know how nice it feels to have a center back like Virgil van Dijk behind you at all times? There's an element of cool, composed calmness that he just exerts at all times, 24/7. You lose the ball and you're not worried because you have Van Dijk behind you. You concede a counterattack and you're not worried because you have Virgil van Dijk behind you. You concede a set piece and you're not worried because you have Virgil van Dijk in the box. He is Captain Fantastic. He has been absolutely ridiculous again, year in, year out since he joined Liverpool. And he is a fully worthy Premier League captain, Premier League winning captain this season. But in Van Dijk and Salah, right? I think these are the guys I kind of highlight. Obviously, Liverpool this season have been ridiculous. Trent, it might not be his best year numbers-wise, but I think he's been brilliant whenever he's played. McAllister, I mean, what a bargain he was a year ago for £35 million, while the likes of United and Arsenal and Chelsea were all spending upwards of 60 to 100 million pounds on their midfielders. Liverpool found this little genius, a World Cup winner for 35 million, and McAllister is just that, a genius. He's been brilliant, and he's popped up with some big goals, maybe none bigger than the one he scored today to make it 2-1, I believe, at the time. And he is just, again, the picture perfect emblem of consistency. The guy doesn't drop below a 7 out of 10. He is a fantastic passer. He's a fantastic presser. He is the heart of that Liverpool midfield. Next to him, Gravenberch, who maybe the second half of the season started to burn out a little. And in the summer, I still think they need to find depth in that position, because although he's been a revelation, he is only human. And they've ran him like an Iron Man. He's not there yet in terms of how many games he can play. But start of the season, first 6 months maybe, this guy was an absolute joke, man. Diaz, I think he's been unfairly scapegoated at times. Although he hasn't been the most consistent all the time, he's come up with some big goals. And I do feel like Liverpool fans don't appreciate him all the time like he kind of should be. He's not a perfect player, and ultimately, it might be time to find a replacement for him. It might be time to find an upgrade on him. But you can't doubt the contributions that this guy has given to the team, man. You can't. You don't win Premier League titles with 11 players. You win it with an entire squad, and he has been a big part of that, as has Cody Gakpo, who I spoke about. This is a real coming-of-age season for Cody Gakpo. It really is. A guy that his first 2 years at the club, I think there was a lot of question marks. Where does he fit in amongst everybody? Is he a center forward? Can he play as a left winger? I mean, he's silenced all those doubts this year with big goals, big performances, really kind of growing into his own this year, man. A big part of Liverpool's success. Konate, his first season where he's really been fit from start to finish, and he's shown that there's a reason he cost, first of all, how much he did. There's a reason why PSG really want him, and he might ultimately end up leaving Liverpool. But there's a reason as well, too, that Liverpool fans have always been with this guy, kind of saying, if we can just get a full season of Ibu, fit and healthy. He's one of the best center backs in the league, and his partnership with Van Dijk this year can only be described in one word: imperious. But I really wanted to focus on Salah and Van Dijk the most, not because no one else matters, but because they are the driving force of this team. And I want to make a point of saying this, right? Because there's been this whole conversation this entire year about, is this a good Premier League season? Is this a competitive Premier League season? Is this the worst Premier League season ever? I made a video on this, and I'm going to stand by it. I'm not going to let anyone pressure me into what to think, because I made that video before the narrative even set. It's just my opinion. Do I think this is a great Premier League season? No, I don't. And before Liverpool fans go in the comments and get mad at me, let me land. Let me at least say what I have to say, and then make your opinion on that. The Premier League campaign as a whole, I don't think has been great. I wouldn't call it the worst Premier League season, because I've watched a lot of Premier League seasons. I've been watching this league for almost 20 years, which is crazy to even think about, but I've been watching it for almost 20 years. I've seen bad Premier League seasons. I've seen okay Premier League seasons. I've seen brilliant Premier League seasons. Look, yes, the Premier League in terms of the middle ground, I don't think has ever been better than it has been the last few years in terms of the teams from, I would say, like 5th to like 12th. All of a sudden, you have teams like Villa, Newcastle, Brighton, Bournemouth, Fulham. They're giant killers this year. They're beating teams that on paper, or on paper, I guess you can say, they would normally have no right beating. But you look at their positions in the league, it doesn't lie. And I think you look at the amount of money that the Premier League has right now, the technical floor of the Premier League, I don't think it's ever been higher. I accept all of that. But a big thing that I've really criticized about the Premier League is the bigger teams that have the financial power to compete at the top have completely underwhelmed. Not just this season, but over the last few seasons, whether it's Man United, whether it's Spurs, whether it's Chelsea. I think teams that are that big in terms of stature and that rich and have the amount of resources at their disposal, their positions in the league being as low as they are is an absolute disgrace on them. It's not the Premier League's fault, but it's on them. But that also impacts the Premier League. Secondly, Arsenal and Man City's fall off this year. It's not on Liverpool. It's not on the Premier League, but it is a factor, right? Manchester City going from a team that won 4 Premier Leagues in a row to a team that this season at one point went 13 games without a win. It was crazy. Honestly, at times I really felt like I was dreaming or something like that. It was almost like a pinch you moment. Yes, we understand Rodri went out at the start of the season for the entire year, and I thought he was their best player last season, so it was always going to be a big loss. But the fall off of De Bruyne, the fall off of Bernardo Silva, the fall off of Gundogan, the complete drop off of Phil Foden, mixed with Ruben Diaz really going through bad form as well too, Pep not being able to find a solution to any of this, it ultimately ends in City still making the top 3, which is crazy. But it meant that they weren't a factor in this Premier League title race after, I would say, 8 games. Arsenal. I thought that their summer window was extremely underwhelming. And although I give credit to Mikel Merino for kind of finding a role in this team through the injuries that they've had, the window was not one that I ever thought was worthy of a team that had title aspirations. And I know Liverpool didn't make a single signing, but let's stick to Arsenal right now, right? That window, when we saw the flaws Arsenal had, for me, was an absolute disgrace from their point of view. And then when you add on top of that the big injuries that they have had to Saka, to Gabriel, to who else has been injured? Calafiori, Odegaard missed time this season, Havertz has missed time this season, Jesus has missed time. They've had a lot of injuries, right? That has also hurt their title charge. But even past all of that, my biggest issue with the Premier League this season is the lack of jeopardy, right? The fact that the Premier League title race has been over for like 7, 8, 9 games before the end of the season, for me is extremely disappointing. Obviously, Liverpool fans aren't going to be disappointed because they want to see their team in the league. But as someone who's a fan of the league, that's boring for me. The fact that there's no jeopardy in the title race is a little underwhelming. That's not Liverpool's fault. Again, stick with me till the end here. That's not Liverpool's fault, but that's been underwhelming for me. The fact that there's been no relegation race is not just disappointing, but it's also concerning. I think it's something that the Premier League needs to address soon because it's the second consecutive season that the three teams that come up go down. And this year, it was even less competitive than it was last year. And I'm really afraid for the three teams that come up next season as well, too, because I do feel like we're kind of just going with a merry-go-round now, right? They go up, they go down. They go up, they go down. And then, of course, the top 4 race, which again, on paper, it seems interesting. But for me, the top 4 race, which is now even the top 5 race, has always been overrated for me because I almost feel like with the Premier League Champions League race, it's always a case of who's the least bad. Because towards the end of the season, you just have teams that are just throwing it away and they get bailed out by other teams throwing it away too. I always feel like the race for top 5 or top 4, but now top 5 is always overgassed by the Premier League. It's a marketing thing. And the fact that now 5th place gets rewarded with Champions League football, for me, I can't lie. I'm not really that excited by it. But amongst all that, and I'm sure there's been a lot of Liverpool fans that clicked off at this point because they're annoyed of what I'm saying. But this is why I urge you to stay till the end. With all of that being said, I do not think Liverpool are bad Premier League winners. In fact, let me say this. Last year, and there's video evidence of me saying it, and I said it, I believe, when Liverpool were top of the league, I was calling last year one of the best Premier League seasons I had ever watched. And at that point, I thought Liverpool were going to win it. The three horse title race, the Champions League race. For me, it was fascinating, even though my team was in 8th place at the time of recording. Ultimately, Liverpool came 3rd that year. City won it, Arsenal came 2nd. I don't think this has been a great Premier League season, but I will go as far as saying this. This Liverpool team is so great, I think they would have won the league last year. I think Liverpool this season, if you drop this Liverpool team in last year's title race, would have won the league. Because that team almost did. That Liverpool team almost won the league. They had a few chinks in their armor. They had a few problems in terms of conceding goals and in terms of holding on to leads. I do think Jurgen Klopp was kind of coming towards the end. I think if Arne Slot was coaching that iteration of Liverpool, they would have won the league last season as well too. So when I say that I don't think this league season has been that great, it is not a reflection on Liverpool Football Club because I genuinely think they would have won the league last year. They won it this year. They would have won it last year. And going to next season, it's hard to say they're not favorites for it again next yeyear. And let me tell you why I think that's the case. We can talk about coaching. We can talk about transfer windows. We can talk about depth. We can talk about all of that stuff, right? And it all is absolutely warranted. It all matters. I'm not trying to say that tactics and coaching and depth, they don't matter. But at the end of the day, elite level football, an elite level sport period, will always be won or lost by the elite level talent. And this season, no one has more elite level talent than Liverpool Football Club. It's not a coincidence that Manchester City's fall off coincided with the fall off of Kevin De Bruyne, the drop off of Phil Foden, and the injury to Rodri. It's not a coincidence that Arsenal's fall off coincided with the loss of Bukayo Saka, but also the fact that they still don't have enough elite level attacking talent. You're not winning the league with Kai Havertz and Martinelli as your 2 forward options alongside Saka. You're not. I'm sorry. It was never going to happen. Liverpool, with Mohamed Salah and Van Dijk, have now won 2 Premier League titles. They arguably, in a different era, could have won 4. Ultimately, they didn't because they were up against Pep and a City team that, in terms of high-end, elite-level talent, they arguably had the most we'd ever seen in a single team. But this Liverpool team, amongst everything that was happening in the rest of the Premier League, at the end of the day, when you looked at their squad, only one team had the best right wing, I would say the best player in the league, the best center back in the league, the best goalkeeper in the league, the best right back in the league, mixed with a whole lot of great players around them. At the end of the day, you can tell me about coaching, you can tell me about depth, you can talk to me about all of that stuff. And it all matters. Ultimately, it's a part of the reason why Liverpool didn't win it last year. But if you have the best players in the world on your team and the other teams don't, my goodness, you have a good chance of winning. You have a real good chance of winning. And at the end of the day, I think this season, that elite level quality has been the difference between Liverpool and the rest of the league this season. Having the best player in the league, having arguably the second best player in the league, and you could even make the argument the third best player in the league, mixed with a whole lot of other great players around them, and a really good coach that knew how to platform his best players, has ultimately resulted in Liverpool being the most dominant team this season. Like I said, You can't convince me that this Premier League season is a classic. And Liverpool fans, it doesn't have to be. My team won the Premier League in 12-13 with 89 points. It wasn't our most standout year. We crashed out in disappointing fashion out of the Champions League to Real Madrid. We crashed out in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. It's not a vintage year. Everybody tells us that. It's not the end of the world. I don't lose sleep over it. At the end of the day, my team won the league that year. It doesn't matter to me what other people think about it. So I'm not trying. I think the people who are trying to like kind of gaslight Liverpool fans into being underwhelmed by that's weird. That's weird. But also, no one can gaslight me that this has been a standout classic Premier League season. But it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be for the team to win the league to be a great team. And this Liverpool team is a great, great team. So congratulations again to Liverpool. And I'm going to go back to my team, right? Why, for me, this is on top of Liverpool winning the league. What also makes this such a bad day for me as well, too, is Man United again failed to win away to Bournemouth. And this is not a Man United review, but rather something I saw at the end of the game. And it really shows the levels between these two clubs that sit equal in terms of Premier League titles. But on the pitch, they could not be further apart. While Liverpool today crowned off an amazing season by winning their 20th Premier League title in dominant fashion, my team Man United went to Bournemouth against 10 men, barely equalized at the end, and my starting striker went to Instagram to say, team's not happy with the result, but boy, I really needed that goal. While we sit in 15th and our biggest rivals win their Premier League title, that's what my team is doing. The gap between these two, I'm not sure has ever been bigger. And some people might say that's recency bias, but guys, even when we were winning titles in the 2000s, 2010s, Liverpool were not finishing 15th place. They were not on negative goal difference. Food for thought. I'll see you guys soon.